So in the past few years, many organizations have started to adopt microservices as a way of being able to deploy their software systems more rapidly with greater focus on specific areas of the system. But there's often lots of debate around what size microservice should be. Should it be 10 lines of code? Should it be 100 lines of code? And it starts to look a little bit like this, some kind of Mortal Kombat thing. So in the blue, we've got Tamar Saleh, who says, start with monolith and extract microservices. And then over the other side of the arena, we've got Stefan Tilkov, who says, don't start with a monolith when your goal is microservices. And then the wise words of Simon Brown, who says, if you can't build a monolith, what makes you think microservices are the answer? So what's going on here? Where should we actually focus? And I think that Daniel Terhulst North has got it right when in his phrase, he talks about software that fits in your head. And there's an awful lot of experience and awareness behind that recommendation or that phrase. In the context of teams, if we're thinking about building software within the context of teams owning and running software, we might rephrase this to be software that fits in our heads as a team. But the intent is the same. Who has yet to buy or read a copy of Accelerate? Put your hand up and be shamed. Yeah. Right? Fine. So you need to get yourself a copy from the stand. Very, very straightforward. These are the 4 key metrics from the Accelerate book, based on 5 years' worth of state of DevOps reports and assessment from many thousands of companies around the world. These are the 4 key metrics that are strongly indicative of high organizational performance. Lead time, deployment frequency, mean time to restore, and change fail percentage. The problem is if the software that we're working with does not fit in our heads, these things are going to be very difficult to improve upon. If the lead time is the time from, say, version control to production, if the software is too big, we're likely to distrust the kind of tests. We're likely to want to take more time to find out what's going on. The lead time is going to extend. Same with the deployment frequency. If we don't understand the software well enough, are we going to have the confidence to deploy more and more frequently? Probably not. We're probably going to want to restrict how many times we deploy, and so on. If the software we're working with is too complex and too complicated and fails in really awkward ways in production, it's going to be difficult for us to restore that service quickly. So again, our MTTR will extend. So if we want to start to move towards these kind of improving these kind of 4 key metrics as recommended by the Accelerate book, then we need to start thinking about the size of software that we're expecting teams to work with. Software that is too big for our heads works against organizational agility. And this is a kind of different starting point compared to how many organizations, many people have started in terms of thinking about software and architecture and so on. Because often in the past we've thought that we started with bits of technology, we started with a database, we started with a message bus, we started with something else. If we start with the team and the cognitive load for that team, we get some different results. So let's have a little look at what we mean by team cognitive load. It was defined in 1998 by psychologist John Sweller, and this is the total amount of mental effort being used in the working memory. So this is the implication of what we've just been talking about. We should be thinking about limiting the size of software services and products to the cognitive load that the team can handle. So we're starting to take a socio-technical approach to building our software systems here. We don't just pretend that we can throw any kind of software architecture or design or technology at a team and they'll just have to deal with it. We're actually using the kind of, if you like, constraints or properties of the human systems that we have in our organizations and working with them to produce more effective software delivery and more effective software systems. So this, again, is software that fits in our heads. So this is really quite a different approach to thinking about kind of software boundaries. This will feel very unfamiliar to many people, not to everyone. There are organizations already doing this, as we'll see very shortly. But it does feel a bit unusual. When we talk about teams, we're talking about a group of people that's probably less than about 9 people in size. There are evolutionary reasons for this. Some organizations have found patterns where you're able to kind of bring 2 of these kind of teams together in close harmony. If you think about a rugby team, you've effectively got two closely operating teams together. You've got the forwards and the people at the back. And I don't play rugby, but I've spoken to people who do, and they do say it feels a little bit like there's 2 separate teams but working really closely together. So in some organizations have found ways in which they can do that, but generally speaking, we're talking about a cohesive, long-lived group of people that work together on the same set of business problems for an extended period, and that group of people is less than about 9. And we've heard from many of the talks this morning about ownership of software services and how important that is. We need to move to the point where every service must be fully owned by a team with sufficient cognitive capacity to build and operate it. In the words of Andy Bergin from Sky Betting Gaming earlier on, it was you build it, you run it, you fix it, you support it, you diagnose it, and so on. That's what we're talking about here. There's no services, there's no products which do not have an owner.